The 1980s were something else entirely. Britain was changing fast, and somehow, right in the middle of all that noise, the country was producing some of the most breathtaking cars ever built. Not just fast, not just powerful, genuinely beautiful. The kind of beautiful cars that made you stop and just stare. Welcome to Britain Rewind. Today we're counting down 10 of the most beautiful British cars of the entire decade. Some will bring back serious memories. Others might surprise you. Either way, do not go anywhere, because by the time we reach number 1, you will understand exactly why. Number 10. Ford Sierra XR4i. When Ford launched the Sierra in 1982, Britain wasn't quite sure what to think. It was futuristic, almost alien compared to the square-edged Cortina it replaced. But the XR4i took that bold aerodynamic shape and elevated it into something genuinely exciting. That iconic biplane rear spoiler was unlike anything else on British roads. It became one of the most recognizable design details of the entire decade. The Sierra's bodywork flowed beautifully, with smooth curves sweeping from the sharp nose right through to that dramatic signature tail. It looked fast even parked outside the supermarket. And here's what most people don't realize. This car was genuinely ahead of its time in terms of aerodynamic efficiency for a family vehicle. Ford had made wind tunnel testing fashionable on the busy British high street. The XR4i made everyday driving feel somehow genuinely special. Would you have included this one somewhere in the list? Number 9. Vauxhall Astra GTE MK1. From the family ordinary to something with a real pulse, at number 9, the Vauxhall Astra GTE MK1 arrives looking sharp and meaning serious business. Launched in 1983, this car took the humble Astra shell and gave it a total and dramatic transformation. The wide body kit, the bold red graphics, the deep front spoiler, every single element was designed with clear intention. At first glance it seems like a simple hot hatch, but look closer, and you'll notice how beautifully the proportions all work together. That low, aggressive stance was genuinely rare for its class. On British roads at the time, the GTE felt rebellious in the best possible way. It was the car that ambitious young drivers pinned to their bedroom walls. And this is where things get interesting. The MK1 GTE was actually more visually accomplished than many people give it credit for today. Would you agree? Number 8. Austin Metro. You might not expect this, but the Austin Metro genuinely deserves a spot on this list, and here's exactly why. When it launched in 1980, the Metro was positioned as Britain's answer to the small European Super Mini wave. The early design was genuinely charming. That rounded body, the neat proportions, the cheeky raised roofline, it all added up to something unexpectedly coherent and lovable. It wasn't trying to be aggressive or flashy. Instead, it carried a quiet, honest kind of beauty that suited Britain perfectly. Most people overlook this detail, but the Metro's shape was the result of serious design deliberation, intended to feel modern yet approachable. It was a genuinely clever piece of work for the era. Yes, reliability became a talking point later, but purely as a design object, those early Metros had real character. Does the Metro deserve more design respect than it ever received? You decide. Number 7. Rover SD1. Now here's a car that proper car lovers will already be nodding at. The Rover SD1 was a genuinely bold piece of design for its time, and it still holds up beautifully even today. Launched in 1976 but defining much of British executive motoring through the 1980s, the SD1 featured a fastback body style that was striking in a world full of conservative three-box saloons. That long, sweeping roofline flowing down to a practical hatchback rear was quite simply inspired. At first glance it seems straightforward, but look closer, the proportions are almost perfect. Rover's designers took real creative risks here, borrowing elements from Italian styling philosophy. And this is where things get interesting. The SD1 actually won the European Car of the Year award. Britain was producing world-class design, and most of the world was quietly paying attention. Do you think the SD1 gets the recognition it truly deserves? Number 6. Jaguar XJS. If Britain had a Grand Tourer that embodied pure automotive theatre, it was undoubtedly the Jaguar XJS. Now, this car divided opinion when it first arrived in 1975, but through the 1980s it matured into something genuinely mesmerizing. Those flying buttresses at the rear C-pillar were unlike anything on the road. They divided purists and delighted designers in equal measure. But the real reason the XJS stands out is that sweeping, low-slung body, a shape that looked simultaneously like speed and luxury had been melted together and poured into one form. The long bonnet, the wide haunches, the way the whole profile sits so low to the ground, it feels like it's moving even when it's perfectly still. Most people overlook this detail, but the XJS interior design was equally theatrical. Jaguar gave Britain something genuinely world-class here. Would you call this the most beautifully elegant car of the decade? Number 5. Ford Capri 2.8 injection. Before we get into the top 4, let's talk about a car that defined an entire generation of British drivers. The Ford Capri 2.8 injection was the car every man in Britain wanted on his driveway in the early 1980s. And honestly, it's not hard to understand why. That long bonnet, those wide rear arches, the fast back body with that low, purposeful stance, the Capri looked like something that should be chasing villains through London in a primetime television drama. The 2.8 injection version arrived in 1981 with uprated suspension and those gorgeous pepper pot alloy wheels, adding genuine visual aggression to an already beautiful shape. And here's what most people don't realize, the Capri's design was influenced by American muscle car styling, yet somehow it felt entirely undeniably British. This car is deeply embedded in the national character. Do you remember seeing one on your street as a kid? Number 4. Lotus Esprit Turbo. Now we're into seriously special territory. The Lotus Esprit Turbo is one of those cars that stop traffic completely. When the revised Esprit Turbo arrived in 1980 wearing Peter Stevens' updated body design, it looked genuinely otherworldly. Those sharp, geometric wedge lines were designed with a ruler and a dream. There was nothing soft, nothing rounded, nothing compromising about it. The Esprit Turbo was pure angular drama, from the flat bonnet cutting forward like a blade to those dramatic rear haunches. And here's what most people don't realize, despite being built in a converted factory in Hethel, Norfolk, this British sports car was trading design blows with Italy's finest. Lamborghini and Ferrari were watching. The Esprit Turbo felt like science fiction made real, and Britain built it. A mid-engined, turbocharged masterpiece that looked almost aggressively futuristic. Could this have been even higher on the list? Keep watching and tell us. Number 3. Aston Martin V8 Vantage. At number 3, we enter the realm of the truly extraordinary. The Aston Martin V8 Vantage in 1980s specification is one of the most muscular and beautiful Grand Tourers ever created anywhere in the world. That wide, square-jawed front end. The flared arches. The low, aggressive bonnet that seems to stretch forever forward. Everything about this car speaks of power barely contained. But the real reason the V8 Vantage stands out is the way it combined genuine brute force with absolute elegance. Most cars pick one or the other. The Vantage chose both. Hand-built in Newport Pagnell, Buckinghamshire, every single Vantage was crafted by skilled British workers, which gave each car a unique, slightly individual character. And this is where things get interesting. At the time, the V8 Vantage was faster than a Ferrari 308. Britain wasn't just keeping up. Britain was leading. Do you believe this car belongs higher? Number 2. Jaguar XJ40. 2 spots from the top, and we find ourselves looking at one of the most significant and quietly beautiful car launches in British motoring history. The Jaguar XJ40, introduced in 1986, was a deeply personal and important project for Jaguar. The company had been building the XJ saloon since the 1960s, and the XJ40 represented a complete reimagining. It kept the classic Jaguar elegance, the long bonnet, the graceful profile, the jeweled headlights, but added sharper, more contemporary lines that placed it firmly in the 1980s. And here's what most people don't realize, the XJ40 took nearly 15 years to develop, making it one of the most labor-intensive car projects in British automotive history. Every curve on that body was deliberate. Every detail earned its place. Britain was building something it should have been enormously proud of. Does the XJ40 deserve its place in the pantheon of great British designs? Number 1. Ferrari Testarossa. And here we are. Number 1. The controversial choice, the car some of you have already guessed, and the one that rewrote what British car culture dreamed about in the 1980s. The Ferrari Testarossa. Yes, it's Italian. But stay with us, because the cultural impact of the Testarossa on Britain through the 1980s was truly unlike anything else. This was the car plastered across every bedroom wall in the country. Those dramatic side strakes running the full length of the door. That absurdly wide rear. The flat 12-engine howl. The Testarossa didn't just look extraordinary, it was the physical definition of what beautiful meant in that decade. And here's the critical point. No car made British boys dream bigger, work harder, or want more from life. You might not agree with number 1, and that is exactly the point. Drop your favorite choice in the comments, we'd love the debate. The 1980s gave us so much more than shoulder pads and synthesizers. They gave us a golden age of automotive design, cars that were bold, beautiful, and deeply, unmistakably British in spirit. Every car on this list represents something that mattered. Something that made people feel something real. Which one spoke to you most? Tell us in the comments below, we want to know. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button and subscribe to Britain Rewind for more nostalgic content every single week. The golden age of British cars is truly worth remembering. And we are just getting started.